What's up, friends? We are back. Alternative Influence Coaching and Nick Carrier.
That's me.
We've joined forces. For this subject matter, 10 things that require absolutely no talent, which we're having a ball with this subject. So today we're going to talk about
how to be on time.
Yeah, punctuality. And this is, I think there's some rub on this subject matter with some people. But yeah, how did you get punctual? Because he's punctual here. Like every time he's come over here, when I come to his house, everything is set up and ready to rock and roll, and I love it. I think it's super respectful. So how did you get this ingrained in you?
Yeah, definitely. So my dad is definitely the first person who stressed the importance of being on time, whether it was being on time for school, whether it was being on time at the dinner table every single evening. I think that was probably a huge thing as well, because when we were growing up, 6:30 was usually dinner time, and I think just like actually having a time of 6:30 every single time made you realize like, oh, having a time for something is important, so I might as well be on time for that time.
Right.
And if I wasn't on time for the fresh, warm, hot cooked meal that my mom just made, then it was disrespectful to her because it was going to get cold and she wasn't going to like that. And if I had to do something that my mom doesn't like, then my dad is 10 times not going to like it. And so he was always just somebody who stressed the importance of being on time. And yeah, like you said, it is a matter of respect, because one of the things that he would verbalize to us so often is that it is literally disrespectful to the other person if you don't show up on time, or it's disrespectful to your teacher, whoever it is that you're showing up on time for. It is disrespectful to them to not show up on time. And me, I always wanted to be a people pleaser, especially when I was young. I was like, okay, I'm not going to offend the other person then. I'll be there.
Easy for me, right?
Yeah, easy.
Well, I wasn't so lucky. It took me a little bit longer to get there. And what structure for me was actually, it was definitely my mom cracking the old whip. Like, get up. Why? Because I'm up. But I don't have anything to do.
Yeah. She's like, I'm your mom. I don't need a reason.
Right. And that right there is the choice to, well, I can either be there and respect it, or I can be disrespectful. And mind you, it was very disrespectful as a child. Sorry, Mom. But for me, like growing up and becoming a professional, getting in, as soon as I got into management, at a young age, 24. That is when I started to realize when I'm on time, the guys are on time. When I'm on time, I'm off when I want to be. When I'm on time, I feel like I have control of my day. That started to really click, and it rolled right into, into personal training and into now. And I've had a couple of, I've talked to Nick about this. He has no examples of when he was not on time. Someone reprimanded him. It's just like, it's a rite of passage.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's times when I've not been on time, but nothing that was where I was very much reprimanded.
Sure. So I got one example, and that's when we were talking about Zoom. Of all things, I was late for a Zoom call, right? Which seems
traffic was crazy, so.
Well played.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing, is more like it. And I texted the guy that I was on the Zoom meeting with. I said, 5 minutes, I got to figure this thing out. He goes, no problem, no worries. Just so you know, I got a hard out at the top of the hour. And I was like, okay. I didn't feel offended, but I was definitely felt like, oh, I want to respect this guy's time. He set it aside for me, and I got to get to it. So I've had that example of, not necessarily reprimand, but someone putting me in that place of, hey man, keep in mind that you asked me for this meeting, and I set aside this amount of time, and I have it, but you better hurry up.
Yeah.
That was a good one for me.
Yeah, and to touch on that, the idea of respect even more. So many people don't realize that they're being disrespectful when they show up on time, and it's so obvious when people show up late to my fitness classes, and it's the same people that show up late. Mm-hmm. The same amount of time late. It's because it's like, okay, if you can show up 4 minutes late every single time, why couldn't you show up 4 minutes early every single time? And so it's crazy. So the people show up late every single time, also every single time say, oh, like, I'm sorry. It's like, you're not. You're literally not sorry. Like, you do it every time.
Those people are going to comment on this
Those people can comment, but
Nick, was this about
you're the.
me?
Hey, if they're commenting, that means they're watching the
Right.
video. It means they need to be watching the video, so it's all right. But a lot of times, if someone shows up late, and the person they show up late to doesn't give them any kind of negative feedback or any kind of negative reprimand, then this person doesn't know that they're necessarily disrespectful. Or if I showed up to a class in high school and my teacher didn't say anything about me being late, then how am I going to know that that's something that I should not do again? Right? And so, at Orange Theory, people, if they don't show up within 5 minutes of the start time, they're not allowed in class. And so when you have that sort of reprimand from showing up late, then you might have that flip of the switch like, oh, that actually is kind of disrespectful. I need to do it. So if people don't have that mindset now, then show up just a little bit later, get a negative reprimand, and then see what happens.
I just thought about this too, and it just dawned on me, and I think it's because we're used to being the punctual ones.
Yeah.
So it's easier for us to be like, hey, why y'all late, right? It takes zero talent. But there's also responsibility and communication there. You if you're the responsible one and you're there on time, and you have that's a rub for you, you got to communicate it. Balls in your court. You can't be mad at somebody for something that you're not enforcing or asking for them to do better at.
Yeah.
Right. So you're responsible for that.
Yeah. Well, it's to touch on one of the other 10 that is in a different video on how to have high energy.
Yeah.
It's about you got to focus on the things that you can control. So per se, if I am somebody shows up late for my meeting, and they do it 4 times in a row, and I haven't said anything to that person, then at the end of the day, I honestly don't have the right to complain about them being late anymore because I haven't done anything. So instead of me continuing to complain about something that I can no longer control or that I can't control, start taking control of what you can and have the courage to say something to them.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely a responsibility on the part of the person who is being showed up late for, if that's the right way to phrase it.
No, yeah, it is, and I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's a practical application, right?
Yeah.
Like, communicate. Y'all girlfriends are telling you to communicate. Don't act like you're the first ones. So what else? What else we got?
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about practical application, but I want to go a level deeper into how when I'm planning out my day, make sure that I'm on time for the things that I have to be at. So, for example, today I knew I was going to be here at 2. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, if we want to start things at 2, then I'm going to be there at 1:50. If I'm going to be there at 1:50, I need to make sure, okay, I'm going to plug his address in the maps and see how long it's going to take. Okay, 15 minutes. I got to make sure I leave by 1:35. If I'm leaving by 1:35, that means I need to have my work done by 1:30. If I have my work done by 1:30, that means I need to have lunch done by 12:30 because I would need an hour to get something else done. And so you have to reverse engineer the thing that you want to be on time for.
Right.
So, and we do this a lot growing up, or people do it for us growing up. For example, like I know before high school football games, our high school football game started at 7. If that started at 7, we need to start warming up on the field by 6:20. If we were warming up on the field by 6:20, we were going to have our 15-minute defensive meeting at, I can't even do that math, 5:55 or 6:05. And if we were going to have that meeting at 6:05, then we needed to make sure we started to dress by 5:30 because you get the point.
Yeah.
It's like it takes some intentionality and it takes some forethought behind like actually showing up on time.
Yeah.
Because it does take zero talent besides being able to read a clock, but it does take a little bit of time to be able to make sure that you're punctual.
Intentionality. Yeah, I think that's the biggest word. You can't have the forethought without being intentional about making a plan. And
Yeah.
You're not planning to show up. You're planning to be late.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Yeah, that's huge. So that's you. As far as moving, you being on time. So that's your way of doing it. My way. So I have this really weird thing where I hate alarm clocks. I hate alarm clocks. I hate the sound of a phone ringing.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't like even the text tone. So, and it's a pretty timely response on my text messages, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
He's only saying that because he's.
I don't know how. No, but you do.
I don't know. It's an anxiety thing for me. I do have to have an alarm clock in the room. but I've trained myself to be able to get up. Like 4:30 is the time that I like to start my day. For preparation, really work doesn't usually start till 6. So being able to have the clock, and I typically roll over to look at that clock, and it's almost always 5 after 4, 10 after 4. And I'm like, okay, let's start the process.
Yeah.
Wake myself up. And that's been really freeing for me. And it's kind of moved, and this is relatively new, since within the last, year and a half. It's helped me to have that forethought, to set that intention. So that when I know I have a hard out at 3 p.m., I can look at the clock and I'm like, okay, 3 p.m. really means 2:40, 2:45, because I got to be able to switch the gear, and I got to leave more room for myself to do that, and I'll be less anxious.
Yeah.
Because I know there are probably people that listen to this who are going to listen to this and never still be on time.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, well, that's why I don't want to be that way, because those guys sound like they're anxiety ridden. Right, and it's definitely not the case, though I have been an anxious man.
Haven't we all?
Wouldn't you agree, though? Like, that's like
100%. I think, and a couple of other things here. I think that if you can't realize the benefits of being on time, or like having that level of intentionality and forethought, think about it this way: that you are literally not improving a certain amount because of you not being on time. So, for example, if you show up 5 minutes late to a fitness class, and you do that 4 times a week, 20 minutes. If you do that every single week for a month, I'm not gonna do the math, you do it every single month for a year, and you do it for 15 years, like, think about the gap between where you could be if you had those extra 5 minutes every single day between and where you are right now.
That's huge.
So it's like, if you can get the legitimately physical or mental benefits, whatever it is that you're gonna need to be on time for. If you show up late for class, you're missing 5 minutes of education or information. If you're showing up late, you are literally being less than who you could be because of a lack of whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
That is huge.
That should be motivation in and of itself, in my opinion.
No,
whether or not you care about respecting other people.
Find yourself motivated.
Yeah, they're like, I don't respect the other person, so I'm going to show up late. Well, now you're going to be worse off.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it will affect you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So, all right, that's been great.
Yeah.
And that's huge. So, zero talent. I hope you soak it up, man. Nick, again, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at carrier_bestyou. They can find my podcast, Nick Carrier's Best You Podcast, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. You'll find it.
If you're watching this on YouTube, look below. You'll see links to all of those things. So, all right, guys. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Be on time.